So we shot David's first scene when he's standing in the first scene we shot is the scene where he is the beggar in the tunnel, and then he stands up and he's mad at Hoggle, and that's where his codpiece is the biggest in the movie, because we shot that scene and it went off to the studio for rushes, and the calls came back very quickly. You're absolutely nuts if you think David Bowie is going to keep wearing that thing. So it then got smaller and smaller and smaller during the movie. And we never reshot. My dad was always adamantly against reshooting. The industry today, which I think is really fun because equipment is not as expensive, lighting is not as expensive, that you can kind of shoot a movie 3 times. And I think that's really exciting, the new way you can make movies, where you can kind of shoot it and shoot it again and shoot it again, because shooting is, for certain types of movies, isn't such an expensive part. My dad would consider it an enormous failure if he had to reshoot a scene. So he, I don't know that I ever saw him reshoot a scene. That was, his first cuts would come in 10 minutes long. There was no such thing for him as the 4-hour cut or the 3.5-hour cut. He shot what was going to be in the movie always. Anyway, I didn't do a good description of how the scripting process went because I think it was a little chaotic. But
I feel like you still, and there's jokes in here that feel Python-esque.
Oh, sure.
You know, the false alarm rocks that can't, that just want to be able to do their job.
Yeah.
That stuff has a lot of that sort of humor.
Oh, yeah, and Hoggle, and Hoggle, the fairies that bite, Hoggle wanting plastic, I love plastic. All that's Terry. The wild things were, and they're not called the wild things, they're called the fireys. And they're called the fireys because when Maurice Sendak saw the movie, he was not happy with my dad. And my dad and he were very good friends. And originally they were the wild things. And Maurice said he was not happy. Anyway, they were good friends, so the wild things got changed to the fireys.
I was curious about that because I'd heard, there's the credit at the end that's kind of a nod to this whole discussion that they had about it. But there's also in the opening scene, or in the opening bedroom scene, you see where the wild things are is on the desk.
Yes.
So was that, at what point did
I think Maurice had already seen the cut, because we had already cut the movie before we shot the opening and close. Because we shot those in Coscob.
Okay.
Coscob, is that right? In Connecticut. Mm-hmm. Just next to Greenwich, Connecticut. So we had shot the whole movie in England. And then we came back and shot the opening and close of the movie.
And New York. I was there.
Were we in New York? Where in New York did we shoot? Where?
Yeah, at the beginning, you go past the town hall.
Where is that? Where is that?
Rockland County.
Listen to me. I grew up in Bedford, New York. I still don't know where that is. So
Tappan Zee Bridge.
Oh, Tappan Zee. Oh, was it over there? Oh, so am I wrong? Maybe we didn't shoot. I'm remembering it as next to Greenwich, Connecticut.
And everybody knew the Muppets were going to be in town.
Oh, and then they weren't. Oh, well, there you go. See, we weren't in Coscob, Connecticut. This is why you can't ask people about movies this long later. I don't know.
He let me sit there and showed me how they make rain, and I was 10 years old.
Yeah, with lots of fire hoses.
And then I think they also went to Terrytown.
Okay. There you go. See, I totally stand corrected.
You went past my house, so I kind of remember.
Wow.
So just to pick you up on the Bowie thing, he wanted Sting, right, in the beginning, and you and your brother convinced him to go with Bowie instead.
Probably. I think it was.
This is no offense to Sting.
No, Sting is fantastic. I remember I was pushing hard that he wanted to know who did I think was the biggest, most important artist for my age group, and in America. And I thought it was Michael Jackson or David Bowie. So I thought you really need to decide between Michael Jackson and David Bowie, and they both wanted to do the movie. So, but Michael had done more in this age group, whereas David, it was more interesting for my dad, I think. And I thought, because I was a little bit of a new romantic. So I was a little bit, I would lean more towards David Bowie in my taste. But it was also, I think, interesting to my dad because he was more of an adult performer and played that role of the masculine threat and attraction for Sarah probably easier than Michael Jackson does.
But did your dad actually take the project to Michael Jackson?
No, I think it was just communication with agents and stuff like that had to happen. And really, I think anybody would have played the role. I think the idea that Jim Henson was kind of doing what was in Dark Crystal, but now he was using actors and this king of the goblins, it's so delicious. You can imagine today if you had a role of the king of the goblins and it wasn't with everybody making these kind of movies. So I think anybody would have said yes. David was real excited, and he also liked the idea of, you notice all three of them are musicians, so he wanted them to, whoever played Jareth, he wanted them to write the songs too. And I remember when David came in with his demos. Usually, when you're making a musical, the demos come in, the songwriter is plunking away on a piano and singing along, and they sound beautiful. When Paul Williams does it, they were gorgeous. You could make an album of them, but it was just Paul Williams and a piano singing. But when David came in, he had already done a recording session with the Harlem Choir. And literally, he said, I'm going to come and I'll be there in 8 days. I've got demos of all the tracks. And he came in, and they were almost finished, all of them. He's amazing how kind of fast and big a thinker he is.
So you were working in a variety of roles on this film, but let's talk about some of the ones that we don't know about. You and Kevin Clash were the hands, right? There
was a whole bunch of us that were the hands, as you can imagine. Well, Kevin and I coordinated all the puppetry. And I think we called it puppet captain. What was my credit in this? Did anybody notice? Or puppet coordinator or puppeteer coordinator. But basically, we were head of all things puppet. And from the performance point of view. So my relationship with the Creature Shop over all those years was I would come in early onto a project, and they would start from the design working forward, and I would start from the performance working backwards, and we would work together at all stages. So that was my whole approach, was what does it have to do in front of the camera, what is its character, and how do we do that, and they would work from the design going forward, what does it look like, and we would work together. But Kevin and I trained, we had to train about 40 puppeteers because we didn't have nearly a sizable enough group of puppeteers before the movie even started. The Shaft of Hands, the funny thing with the Shaft of Hands is everybody's behind it on leaning boards. It's the only way you can put people close enough. So we're all basically lying down, but we found that if you actually lay down on flat boards, everybody got sick and they couldn't look up enough. So they're all on leaning boards. So you're leaning forward about 45 degrees and then reaching through to get all the hands close together. You have to stack the people in the back. So we did all of that, and we were going to do a weekend rehearsal before we shot. I don't know if it was a weekend or... Anyway, it was just before we shot. My dad came in, and he was down below, and here was the Shaft of Hands. And we could do about, I don't know, 10 feet worth with probably, I don't even know. I bet you can read and find out how many puppeteers we put back there. But maybe, there was probably 25 to 30. And then there'd be some hands that were just on sticks that didn't do anything. So that one person could work like 8 or 9 of them with strings and all sorts of stuff. But my dad was trying to direct, and he was like, okay, great, all right, let me see the hands, the ones up there, let me see them. It's like, which ones, Jim? From him back, which ones do you mean? Well, and the ones that are towards the top on the right. Okay, do you mean this one? And 15 hands would wave. Well, stop waving, all of you. Now somebody wave. No, that's too many people. And it's like, and we realized, this is a huge problem that none of us anticipated. He had no way to direct us. It was utterly impossible. So we had to make up a whole graph of which hands were where and which ones were going to become the faces. And then the way it worked was there was a group of about 6 of us who had rehearsed and designed all of the faces. And then we taught the others. And then, but we started with just my dad and I in front of a mirror, just saying, "Hey, do you think we could do this shaft? Do you think we can make these faces?" And we just played around in front of a mirror for a few hours, and I said, "Yeah, leave it with that. We can do something great." So we came up with the faces, and so then there was like 6 of us that would move as it's cutting around the different faces. Yeah, we would move around, and yeah. It was Kevin and I, Mac Wilson, and Robert Tigner, probably. Dave Greenaway, maybe, yeah.
With something that's that creative, how much of that is in the script, and how much of it is sort of conceptualized in conversations that are not necessarily taking the script word for word?
Oh, no, I think the Shaft of Hands was Terry's idea. And then I think he just came up with the idea, and he had no idea what it meant. I think he said, "I was hoping they could go like this." And my dad was like, "I don't know. But I like the idea of the Shaft of Hands." So I think I'm pretty sure that one was Terry's idea. And then we lifted, we kept working the idea to make it more complex.